Good morning. Today we're going to continue talking about the distributive property and adding like terms. So first of all, we're going to do a little review. We have 4 vocabulary terms that we learned yesterday. First one is terms. So terms are the parts of an equation that are being added or subtracted from each other. So what we have here, our terms are y, 9, negative 3y, 2h, and negative 17. So if we go to this equation, we got to look at our terms. Every part that's being added or subtracted, I have negative 8, I have negative x cubed, I have 5, and we have 11x cubed. So those are our terms. The next one is like terms, terms with identical variable parts or constants. Up here we have 2 y's, so our like terms are y and negative 3y. Also our constants, 9 and negative 17, the ones that do not have a variable or a letter. So 9 and negative 17. Here we're looking for the same ending. Well, I have negative 8. That is a constant. It doesn't have a variable on it. I also have 5. That's another constant. So our like term is 8 and 5. We're also looking for the same ending. Here I see x cubed. This one also has x cubed. So we also have negative x cubed and 11x cubed. Next we have coefficients, so the number in front of the variable. Here, if we have something all by itself, we know we can put a 1 there. So our first coefficient is 1. Then we look at negative 3, that's in front of our variable. There is another number in front of a variable, so that's 2. And those are our coefficients. Here, if we're looking for numbers in front of the variable, we have 1 in front of the x, and 11 in front of the x cubed. So our coefficients are those. Constant terms are numbers without variables. In this equation, it's 9. Over here, numbers without variables, well, I have a negative 8, and I have a 5. Those are numbers without variables attached. So that's our review of terms, like terms, coefficients, and constants. Now let's do a review of combining like terms. So first of all, we got to look and see if we can find any letters. The first letter I see is x. So I know I have 2x. I also have an x here. So that's 1x, because there's nothing in front of it, so we can put a 1 there. I'm going to combine both my x's. 2x plus 1x, that gives me 3x. Now I have to look to see if I have any more letters. I have a b and another b. But here I have a negative 4b and negative 7b. So negative 4 plus negative 7 gives me negative 11b. Then my answer is 3x minus 11b. I've simplified it. I made the equation smaller and simpler to use. Here, looking for letters, I got a G, a G, a G, and another G, so 4 G's. So, first of all, I can put a 1 in front of everything that doesn't have a number there. So I have 8G minus 1G gives me 7G plus 1G minus a negative 2G plus 7. Still have G's, so I can combine those. 7g plus 1g gives me 8g minus a negative 2g plus 7. Now if I just have a negative followed by, or a subtraction sign followed by a negative, I know I can make that both a plus. So I have 8g plus 2g, which gives me 10g. Then we have the plus 7 that has nothing to combine. Our answer is 10g plus 7. Down here we have to find the area of the rectangle. So the area of a rectangle is base times height. So if I'm doing the base times the height, well, my base is x plus 4. My height is 3. So now I'm just going to leave it like that because we don't know how to solve this yet. We don't know how to simplify it. So my area of this rectangle is x plus 4 times 3. Over here we have x, and then in addition this 7, so x plus 7, and 6x times 6x. Again, we don't know how to solve this yet, but we're going to learn in just a second. Here is what we have. This is called the distributive property. So if you see a number outside of our parentheses, we know that we can take this number and distribute it or multiply it to everything. So I'm going to multiply this negative 4 times 3g and this negative 4 times 8. So what I'm going to do is it makes it easier for me to draw a box. So I have a box here. I'm going to put the negative 4 outside of the box because I know that that's outside of my parentheses. What's inside of the parentheses is 3g plus 8. So I'm going to put that on top of the box. Now what this box tells me is that I'm multiplying negative 4 times 3g and negative 4 times 8. If I do negative 4 times 3g, I get negative 12g. And if I do negative 4 times positive 8, I get negative 32. So my new answer is negative 12g minus 32. This one over here, it has my 7 on the back side. That doesn't matter. I can still distribute it to both of my numbers. As long as the number is outside of the parentheses, no matter where it is, I can still distribute it. So 7 times 10 is 70. 7 times x, 7x. Now if I bring this down, I have 7x. Now I have a plus sign because the 70 is positive. So 7x plus 70. If it was negative, this would be a negative sign or a subtraction sign. On this one, I just have a negative outside of my parentheses. Just like if there's a variable or a letter without a number in front of it, when we put a 1 there, we can put a 1 in front here. So this would actually be negative 1 times negative 2 and negative 6. So I'm going to put the negative 1 outside, the negative 2m, and the negative 6 on top. Negative 1 times negative 2, that gives me a positive 2 because two negatives make a positive when multiplying. This m also comes along for the ride. Negative 1 times negative 6, that gives me a positive 6. So my answer is 2m plus 6. Last problem over here, I'm going to put my negative 5 outside. And then k minus 12. If I have a variable or a letter by itself, I can put a 1 there. So negative 1 times 5, or negative 5 times 1 gives me negative 5. The k comes with. Negative 5 times negative 12 gives me positive 60. So I get a negative 5k plus 60. Alright, let's do a little bit more practice with these. So here I have an n outside, so I have a variable. Then on top I have a negative 5n minus 9. Now, how do we multiply this? Well, if I just have a letter, I know I can put a 1 there. So I know I can do 1 times negative 5. That's my first step. Now, I also now have an n times an n. What that looks like then is n times n. If I were to put a number in front there, like a 3, and I did 3 times 3, I would get 9. Another way to write 3 times 3 is 3 squared. That also gives me 9. So, if we follow this same pattern, n times n, we could also write that n squared. So n times n is going to give me n squared. Now we have a 1 times a negative 9 gives me negative 9. And then the n comes along for the ride, and we get negative 5n squared minus 9n. Here I have a negative 8. Doesn't matter where I put it. I can put it at the back or the front. I'm going to put it here in the front and get y plus 7. Negative 8 times y, or 1y, gives me negative 8y. Negative 8 times 7 gives me negative 56. So negative 8y minus 56. Down here I have a negative w times 2w plus 7. If I have a variable by itself or a letter by itself, I can put a 1 there. Negative 1 times 2 gives me negative 2. W times w gives me w squared. Negative 1 times 7 gives me negative 7. W comes along, negative 7w. Okay, here I have negative 4 and q minus 4. Negative 4 times 1q gives me negative 4q. Negative 4 times negative 4 gives me a positive 16. Two negatives make a positive. So my last answer is negative 4q plus 16.